What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Sport Encyclopedia. I'm your host, Ollie Ingram, and we are back here with another prediction video. Today's prediction video is going to be on the similar line of last prediction, which was the NBA 2023-2024 season predictions. This time we're going down a level. We're going to what I prefer to watch, the college basketball 2023-2024 predictions. In this video, I'm going to go over what my preseason top 25 is. I'm going to go over who I think is going to be the player of the year, the coach of the year, defensive player of the year, and the AP first team, as well as which team I think is going to win in the Power 5 conferences. So Big 12, SEC, ACC, Big 10, and the Pac-12. So without further ado, let's get straight on into it. So, who do I have at number one? That's pretty much the big question surrounding all of college basketball at the moment. Who do people think is going to be the number one preseason team going into the season? And it's really going between two teams, the Kansas Jayhawks or the Duke Blue Devils. Now, both teams have different advantages over each other. KU has tons of experience, tons of people who have been in positions like this before, national champions on their team. Duke, tons of freshmen like they always do. You know, Coach K left and nothing changed. They still get 5-star freshmen every single season. So both teams have their ups and downs to each concept and how they want to play. But for this, I could be a bit biased here, but I am going with the University of Kansas to be my preseason number one overall team. I think they've got the best college basketball starting five, not just with bench, but starting five in the entire country. And I think their bench is loaded with depth, with freshmen, loaded with transfers, with experience in each position. So I think they are the clear-cut number one team going into the season. Obviously, that leaves Duke at number two. To round out the top five, I've gone with Michigan State at 3. They're a team that's basically returning all 5 of their starters and scorers from last season. I think they're on for a really good year with Tom Izzo. Number 4, I've gone with Houston, a new addition to the Big 12. They've been a powerhouse, really, a 1 or 2 seed the last 3 seasons. Now they're in a big conference like the Big 12, and I don't expect anything to change. And to finish the top 5, I've gone with Purdue. Now, I'm not a big fan of Purdue, but I can't discredit the talent they have, especially with Zach Edey, last year's Player of the Year. I was surprised he returned to college, but happy in the sense because I like it when players return to college. So I think in that respect, I think they're going to be just as good as they were last year. Obviously, they were a number 1 seed, but again, I'm not as high on Purdue as a lot of people are, so I don't think they're going to have that good of a season, but they're too good to lead them out of the top 5 going into the season. Let's go through positions 6 through 10 now. 6th, I've got the reigning champion UConn Huskies. Yes, they've lost good talent in Hawkins. They've lost Andre Jackson, but, you know, they are the defending champions. They've got good recruits coming in. I think they'll be on for another good year. Number 7, I've got Tennessee. Somehow, someway, Santiago Vescovi is back for another year. And Jeremiah Jordan James, I don't know why I can't remember his first name, but I feel like I've been watching them two for, 6-7 seasons consecutively now. I mean, it's crazy how many extra years of eligibility these college players can get with COVID and everything. Number 8, a surprise team from last year's tournament, but I think because they've returned so many of their key players from last year, I think they'll be good again. That is the FAU Owls. You know, Elijah Martin, John L. Davis, these guys exploded on the national stage last year during the March Madness tournament, obviously making it to the Final Four, and I think they're going to be on for another good year and hopefully try to build their program onwards. And number 9, I've gone with North Carolina. Another team that is returning a player that I feel like has been here since I was in diapers. Armando Bacot. I mean, the guy's been in college for at least 6 or 7 years now at the very minimum. He's a great player, but God, can he finally graduate? I mean, you can say that about tons of players in all college basketball, and especially, you know, at the University of Kansas, we've had players like Perry Ellis, who everyone thought has been here forever, even though it was only 4 years. And to round off the top 10, I've got Marquette. Marquette had a really good year last year. I don't think many people saw them being as dominant as people thought in the Big East, but they're returning probably the best point guard in college basketball in Tyler Kolek, and he'll be on for another good year, so I think Marquette will round off the top 10 for me. Moving on then to 11 through 15. 11th, I've got another Big East team. I've got the Creighton Blue Jays. They're returning Baylor Shireman, probably their star player. Their center, Ryan Kalkbrenner. Two of their most important players. I think they've got Alexander back for another year. So I think they'll be, yet again, competing against, the powerhouses of the Big East and in around that 3 to 4 seed come tournament time. Number 12, I've got Gonzaga. It's impossible to leave them off the top 25. They're losing some key players like they always do every year, but Nolan Hickman's in for a bigger role, and they've got a few transfers to come in and really just solidify the team with experience. Number 13, I've gone with Arizona, and I think that's simply because of Caleb Love. I think Caleb Love, yes, he didn't have the greatest season last year, but he's undeniably one of the top guards in the entire country. So that transfer, even though everyone thought he was going Michigan, but admissions problems that you often see with Michigan with transfers halted that move from happening, ends up with Arizona, and I think they've got another good chance of being another good team this year. Next up is Kentucky. Now, Kentucky is a hard one to rank because they're all just really freshmen like they are every year, and Calipari's not really had successful seasons like he would have hoped within the last, really since COVID, really. But they've got DJ Wagner, they've got Rob Dillingham, another star-studded freshman class. I think I could be wrong, but I think it's the highest-rated freshman class of all time, according to ESPN. So, experience, not much, but freshman talent, they've got the best out of everyone possible. And then to round off, in 15th place, I've got Villanova. They're still in transition. Last year, first year without Coach Jay Wright, arguably one of the best coaches of all time, and really didn't have that good of a year. But they've got returning players such as Eric Dixon, and I think now they've got a year under their belt. I think they've got more experience with this new coach and the coaching staff, and I don't think it's a too dissimilar style of play like we saw under Jay Wright, but now they've got a whole season and off-season prepared for it, and I think they'll be on for a much better year in 2023-2024. Now let's go from 16th to 20th. In 16th, I've gone with Arkansas. Arkansas, upset KU last year, and everyone thought, oh wow, this team could go very far in the tournament, and then they didn't, but they still have a lot of good players coming back. Musselman, in my opinion, is a good coach. I know I wasn't a big fan of him taking his shirt off when he beat KU in a second-round game. It really means nothing, but hey, it's not every day you get to beat the best, so fair play to him. Next is another Big 12 team. I've got the Texas Longhorns in their final year as a Big 12 member, and I think just simply because Chris Beard is such a good coach, I think that's why they're here. I mean, Dylan Dishu is a good player. They've got some freshmen coming in, but I don't know. Tyrese Hunter returning was big for them, but I think simply because of Chris Beard's coaching, that's why I have them so high on this list. After that, I've got USC at 18. I think a lot of people were putting USC low 20s or not even on their top 25 whatsoever, but getting the number one overall recruit in Isaiah Collier is a big step in the right direction. And then you've got good pieces around him, and of course, you've got LeBron James Jr., Bronny joining your program. Hopefully he'll be good to go this season after his scare in the offseason. You don't want to see that happen to anybody, especially at his age. But yeah, the hype is going to be real, for my opinion, with USC. They've got Bronny in the college basketball era. They've got Caleb Williams in the college football side of things. So they're a really hot destination for recruits to go to these days. After that, we've got another Big 12 team, the Baylor Bears. LJ Cryer, big loss because he was arguably one of their best players last year, but you've still got Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua finally playing again, finally healthy. You've got some other returning players, so I think Scott Drew's going to have another top 25 team this season. And then to round off the top 20, I've got Miami, and that's simply because Nigel Pack decided to come back for another year. He's one of the best scoring guards in all of college basketball, despite being so small for his position. I mean, obviously the point guard is typically the smallest player on the court, but he's another level of small. So that just shows how good of a player and how good of a scorer he is. And now the final five I've got here, I've got San Diego State at 21. They lost key players last year after, again, surprisingly making their way to not only the Final Four, but the national championship game. But simply because of that, they still have younger players who are now going to take these roles of the more experienced players who have gone on and left the program. So I think they'll make the top 25 kind of on merit of what they did during the tournament last year. Then I've got Alabama. Nate Oates, another one of my favorite coaches, always gets a lot of good freshmen in. They've got another good class this year. They've got good returning players, and I think they'll be a real competitor in the SEC this upcoming season. 23rd, another SEC team, and that's Texas A&M, and they're a team that really came on near the latter stages of last year. I could be wrong, but I don't believe they ended up making the tournament. I think it was a little bit too late for them. Yes, they had some impressive wins in the SEC tournament, but I think their record overall wasn't enough to make it for the national tournament this year. And I think they've got pretty much their entire starting five and bench players back, so I think they'll easily be in a spot to make the tournament this season. 24th, I've got St. John's, and I've got St. John's because of Rick Pitino. I think Rick Pitino, you can argue his off-the-court stuff, but as a coach, he's the second best current active coach behind Bill Self, arguably a top 5 coach of all time. In fact, probably is a top 5 college coach of all time, I think. And you've got good transfers coming in, such as Zuby Ejiofor from Kansas going to St. John's. He's got other transfers from his older programs like Iona. And I think everyone, when you see Rick Pitino now back at it, I know St. John's isn't part of, well, they're part of the Big East, so I guess they are a power conference, because really the Big East is a power conference these days. I'll stop waffling about St. John's. I think they'll be in for a really good season this year and back in the top 25. And lastly, I've got Illinois. Terrence Shannon Jr. is really the main reason why I put them here. He is one of the best two-way players in the game. I think he's a really good wing option. I'm surprised he didn't go to the draft, but for Illinois fans, I'm sure they're happy he didn't. I think he's a really good player. He'll dominate in the Big Ten, could be all Big Ten first-team performer, and I think Illinois is the final team in my top 25. All right, then, we've done the top 25. Let's go into the 5 power conferences and who I think will be the champions in each. Starting off with the Big 12, KU. I mean, Kansas wins it every year. Not a surprise, with the best team every year, not just in the Big 12, but the national landscape as well. I mean, it's probably a bit biased, but come on, KU always is up there every year. ACC, Duke. I think Duke is the best team out of the rest, not just in the ACC, but in the country outside of Kansas. And with players like Kyle Filipowski coming back, Mark Mitchell coming back, recruits like Jared McCain, Jeremy Roach coming back, I think they'll be definitely ACC champions and definitely a potential Final Four team. Next is the Big Ten, and it's been 1-2-3 on my preseason, but Big Ten champions I have are Michigan State. Like I said, they returned their entire starting 5. That's why I have them so high in my preseason top 25. And I think the Big Ten is on for a bit of a down year this year. So I think that's why I have them as my champions. After that is the SEC. A lot of good lower level or mid-level teams that are near the bottom of the top 25, but Tennessee is the one that stands out from the rest for me. Like I mentioned before, returning players coming back is really the key reason. And of course, Rick Barnes is such a great coach. And then finally, the Pac-12 champs, Arizona. And like I said in my top 25 prediction, the reason is Caleb Love. Caleb Love is such a good player. He transforms that program from being a low-level top 25 team to, my opinion, the top 15 team going into the season. And I think, this is really the final year of the Pac-12. Might as well go out with a bang and win it and hopefully go on to greater things in the tournament this season. Now finally, to finish off this video, the segment that I'm going to move into is the individual awards. So, what those are, Player of the Year, and then my AP first team predictions are also my positional Player of the Year, so best point guard, shooting guard, and so on. And then obviously to finish it off, Coach of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. So Player of the Year, probably no surprise who I'm going with here, Hunter Dickinson. He makes this KU team from maybe the 3rd best team in the country to the clear-cut number 1 best team in the country. They missed that, big size presence last year. KJ Adams, who's going to be great this year, just doesn't have that same 7-foot frame like Hunter Dickinson has. And also, Dickinson can shoot the 3, something KU big men haven't had for a while. So I think he'll be the clear-cut Player of the Year. I don't think Zach Edey will repeat. Then we go into my AP first team predictions, which is also my position predictions. So point guard, I've gone with Tyler Kolek from Marquette. I said earlier, I think he's the best point guard in the country. I think he'll win the award, and I think he'll lead Marquette to a really successful year yet again and land a spot on the first team. Second, shooting guard of the year, Caleb Love. I don't need to talk about him anymore. I think I've done it a bit too much this video for someone who doesn't play for my own team. So yeah, Caleb Love as the shooting guard of the year and making the first AP All-Team. Small forward, Kevin McCullough Jr. Yes, you could think, oh, he's just saying this because he plays for Kansas and he's a Kansas fan. And to an extent, yeah, that's a bit true. But he was such an important player for us last year. Everyone thought, oh yeah, 1 year off to the draft. Nope. Comes back for his final year of college. He'll be the leader with DeJuan Harris this season. And he's just going to be one of the best defensive players in the country, one of the best two-way players, one of the best scorers. He'll be very instrumental in Kansas winning the championship this year. That's what's going to happen. Power forward, Kyle Filipowski, arguably the best player in all of college basketball, had a fantastic freshman season with Duke last year. He'll only be better, he'll only improve, so not really a debate there for who I think will be the best power forward. And then center, mentioned him already, Hunter Dickinson. If he's my player of the year, he's obviously going to win center of the year. So that rounds out my position player of the years and my preseason AP first team prediction. Finally, the last two categories, coach of the year and defensive player of the year. Probably gone a bit biased here, but I've gone with Bill Self for coach, DeJuan Harris for defensive player of the year. Bill Self, by far the best coach in college basketball. I don't think anybody can argue that unless you're a K-State or Missouri fan. KU've just gotten cleared of any NCAA wrongdoings or suspensions, and on top of that, he's been recruiting like nobody has ever seen him do before. And then you add the coaching side to it. I mean, there's no one better than him. So yeah, he's my preseason coach of the year. And then DeJuan Harris, he's the best defender in the nation at the guard spot. KU's been blessed with 4 years of Marcus Garrett prior to him, who won Defensive Player of the Year once in his career, and is arguably, in my opinion, the best defensive player KU has ever had. And now I've got DeJuan Harris, who's could potentially be even better because he's so small and he gets in all those awkward tight positions, steals the ball, plays great one-on-one perimeter defense. So yeah, that's my Defensive Player of the Year. And finally, I think I mentioned it earlier, but who do I think will win the NCAA tournament this year and become national champions? I think it'll be 2-time and 3-year champions, the Kansas Jayhawks. The best team overall from start to bottom, best coach, best player, best defender. I do say KU will win it every year. That is true. That is the truth. But this is one of those years I actually fully believe it. It's one of those years where I think, there's no roster out there that can compete with us. So yeah, KU is my preseason national champions. So there it is. That's my 2023-2024 college basketball preseason predictions. We've gone over my top 25, my conference champions, my individual player awards and AP first team projections, coach of the year, and ultimately national champion. If you like this video, please let me know down below and let me know what I could do better to improve. Like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.